Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am here to talk about the book, The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. However, this is going to be a review with a little bit of a twist. The Dictionary of Lost Words was actually one of the very first books that I ended up buying after I moved from my family home in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire down to Oxford for my new job. And I picked it up for a number of reasons. Firstly, excitement of being able to have my own money to spend as I wanted on new books, the excitement of being able to pre-order books with my first paycheck, the opportunity to buy a couple of books from Blackwell's, which, if you don't know, is actually based in Oxford. And additionally, I was really excited to pick this up because I found out that it is actually set in Oxford and is a historical fiction novel about the compilation of the Oxford English Dictionary. It just really felt like all of the timings matched up really well with my move and the publication of this book. And you know, before I actually got my job and moved down here, I'd never actually been to Oxford before. And so I was kind of hoping that this book might bring me a little bit closer to this new city that I'd never been to before, this new area that was previously unknown, uncharted territory. And Oxford is just so present throughout this novel. Different buildings and street names are constantly referenced throughout the story. And in fact, there's even a little map at the beginning of the book detailing Oxford as it would have appeared in 1911. So whilst you're reading and Pip Williams is just kind of shouting these different places to you, you can follow along. And as you can imagine, this had particular resonance for me because I was trying to work my way around Oxford and trying to learn these different places. And so being able to reference back to this book and to different plot points, being able to reference to different chapters within the book was really, really helpful. And so I thought in order to commemorate this book and my reading experience that I would take you along a little tour of Oxford through this book, through the different places that the main character Esme goes to, and then give you a little bit of a voiceover where I tell you what the book is about and some of my thoughts about it. I started off in Summertown on the Banbury Road, which is mentioned so many times as a very, very long road in Oxford. We follow it along, we go to Sir James Murray's house, who was the primary editor of the Oxford English Dictionary and who appears as a character in this book. We go to Oxford University Press, we go to the New Theatre, which is a very prominent location within the book. We go to the Covered Market, we go to the Bodleian Library. I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but there we go. And then, you know, for good measure, I went past Blackwell's at the end. But I didn't actually go into Blackwell's. How restrained for me. But yeah, that is what we're going to be doing in this review, and I hope you enjoy it. I know it's a bit different, but yeah, let me know what you think. The Dictionary of Lost Words tells the story of Esme Nichols, whose father works as a lexicographer, helping Sir James Murray to compile the Oxford English Dictionary at his scriptorium, a renovated shed near his house, where they keep all the words together. She's a very precocious girl, and we as readers witness her unusual upbringing around these scholars and around all of these words, written on scraps of paper and filed away. However, we find Esme has a penchant for taking misplaced or disposed words, particularly words which have been deemed not important enough to be included in the dictionary, and she keeps them locked away in a trunk in her servant Lizzie's room. As Esme grows up and understands more of the world, she becomes intrigued by these words which scholars have discarded, and she notes a pattern. Many of these words are those which have never been formally written down anywhere, and the words that have never been formally written down anywhere are often slang words of the lower classes, and also words associated with being a woman. With scholarship being largely the domain of middle to upper class men, it's unsurprising to discover how it could be that these words have never been written down and considered worthy. Esme starts to become an advocate for these neglected words, and even takes it upon herself to start to collect words that she picks up around her home and out and about in daily life. And she really starts to question why it should be that some words should be deemed more important of documentation than others, and how denying these words can also be analogous with denying the existence of many, many people around her. It made me think of Victor Hugo's slang chapter in Les Miserables, because of course I have to make everything go back to Les Mis, where he talks about how slang is neglected by traditional scholarship because it is the language of wretchedness. It is not that these words are not actually important, but because slang is an uncomfortable reminder to the wealthy academics of the conditions of those who speak it, which they do not have the means, or perhaps do not have the inclination to change. The book balances so many different issues: the power of words, of documenting, of class and opportunity, education, women's suffrage, activism, motherhood, being a woman in a patriarchal society, the main two strands being that of class and of being a woman, and the intersections of those two states of being. At times it can feel like there's just too much being played around with, that we're only really getting surface level interrogations of some of these things. And yet it also encourages the feeling like you are living a life with the main character Esme. You feel the fluctuating importance of some of these issues to Esme as we go along the story, much like you would find in real life. All of these issues may be going on at the same time, and yet you, in your consciousness, perhaps are not always focused on each of them at the same level all of the time. I think it also contributes to demonstrating how Esme is not perfect in her understanding of these different issues, especially when she's younger. In a pivotal scene in the beginning of the book, we see a child Esme designating the trunk in her servant Lizzie's room as the place that she is going to keep her discarded words. We see Esme look around Lizzie's room, recognising that Lizzie has very few possessions in this world. And yet in the same scene, Esme takes a brooch from Lizzie's table, Lizzie's last surviving possession from her mother, and uses the pin on the brooch to carve out the words, the Dictionary of Lost Words, onto the trunk, dulling the pin and making it almost unusable. In this moment, she's completely inconsiderate of Lizzie's feelings and her possessions. Despite Esme saying that she wants to use her Lost Words dictionary to show solidarity with the working class women in her life, through her actions, she clearly sees them as hers to use with as she pleases. Lizzie was definitely one of the characters that I found the most interesting in this book, especially in illuminating some of these wider themes of documentation and how what we document can either maintain the existence or exclude the existence of different people. There's a great section where Esme asks Lizzie why is it that she does needlepoint, to which Lizzie responds, "I guess I like to keep me hands busy." And then a moment later she adds, "And it proves I exist." Lizzie, as a working class woman with very few possessions and little to no education, has very few opportunities of proving her existence, so she has to create that opportunity through the very limited means that she does have. Something that I think this book could be criticised for, and why I think this book is not for everybody, is because it is rather a plotless little book. Whilst events do happen, at least in the traditional sense, when you pull yourself out of the story, you realise there isn't really any inciting incident, there isn't a real clear beginning, midpoint, climax scene, ending. This book is very much just telling someone's life story. And really, the life of Esme Nichols cannot be all too eventful or all too narrative based in its structure, because Pip Williams is trying to do a good job of balancing the fictional elements, that being the Nichols family, with the historic people who did actually exist. In this book, Pip Williams wants these fictional characters to exist within the story, but without disrupting the historic record. And to be honest, I didn't always think that this balance worked. These fictional characters were just too much of a presence within the story to always hit that right mark of effortlessly blending historic fact with the fiction. Though I did find it interesting to see the different contrived ways that Williams had of making it so that the fictional Esme and her father were never stepping on the toes of the historical record. For example, why it is that Esme is not in the photograph of the lexicographers near the end of the book. All in all, even though I do not think that this story or the writing is absolutely mind-blowing, the Dictionary of Lost Words does feel like a very special book to me. And that is because of the prominence of Oxford within the story, how building and street names are littered throughout the book in ways that, honestly, I could see some readers finding a little bit clunky and unnatural, but for me were really crucial references and points of familiarity as I got to know this new area that I'm now living in. I think it really does go to show how feelings about books are not always objective. Personal resonance can and does play a large role in your relationship to a book. And that's not a bad thing. It's what makes your reading personal and unique to you.